This is Aaron Littles, aka the Captain. I wanted to give a 2026 mid-year check-in. I'll give a few predictions for the rest of the year and into 2027. And again, I'm a Floridian, and so every day in the summer it rains. So you don't have to be a meteorologist to predict the weather in Florida in the summertime. And so with staffing right now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to predict exactly where the industry is headed right now. And I've touched a lot of different pieces of the industry right now. Of course, long-term care, travel nurse, per diem nurse, acute, locum tenens. And so right now, I do not forecast a lot of growth for the rest of this year and into 2027. I think we're seeing a lot of keys that are stagnating the growth of the industry, and it goes back to the MSPs and margin compression. Some of the MSPs, and I'm a practitioner, so I own part owner of two staffing companies, therapy staffing and also nurse staffing. And some of the MSP fees are getting wild, more wild as they go on, 7% and up. And so that's going to eat into your margin, right? So that's with the MSP model. The direct business is there. I think it's one of those things where you have to have the energy and the desire to build a direct business model. You have to have a strategy, I think, to be able to come out ahead in that. And then, of course, I had a couple points written down on how do you survive, because that's what this is all about. When you're a staffing company, and I'll talk to companies maybe under $25 million in revenue, right? You've got to look at saying, well, do you have gas in the tank? Are you still that owner operator, and now you're taking on call, you're doing all those things. One of my consulting clients, they got it. They had to re-energize. They had to take a couple days off and say, you know what, I want to be in this for another few years to ride out this season. And they're making sales calls. They're back recruiting clinicians. Even me, I'm counting pennies. I'm a salesman for both my companies. And so I think it's one of those things where, as owners, you still have to say, okay, I have the fight still in me to fight the fight. And that's the reality of it. The pandemic was a boom and a bust for the industry. So if you don't have that desire and that ability to roll your sleeves up, that's just a red flag that right now it's not going to be easy for the rest of 2026 into 2027. I don't know much beyond that, but as more firms figure out AI, they're going to be able to have a more competitive advantage. As more firms invest in technology, they'll be able to have a faster flywheel for submitting candidates and placing candidates. So those are things to be mindful of, that if you're going to stay in the game, you've got to keep up. And if you can't keep up, then there's a couple things that you need to look at. One is, again, skinning down your costs, looking at every single tool, every single resource, and say, do I need that as a full-time person? Can that be a fractional person? Can I get a company to do that for me? Whatever it may be, to figure out how you can skinny down all your internal operating costs. And then I said creative sources of revenue. So is there partnership opportunities? Are there split opportunities that you can look at? Again, it comes back to a little bit more of a volume game with the margins being compressed. When you have those kind of dynamics, I believe, and from my experience, Gail, everyone gives us a hard time because we didn't have the biggest margins. We made $5 an hour, but with technology and scale, we did a lot of hours a week, like 80,000 hours a week. Oh shoot, okay, that adds up. So I'm not saying that everyone should be low margin, but it's like, well, have a strategy, have a game plan to say, if we're going to have a lower margin model, we have to be high volume, but you can't be low margin, low volume. That will crush your company. So I'm giving you that in a 30-second, or I always expand these, about 3-minute talk, to make sure that you have a business model that's going to survive and hopefully thrive once you figure out where's that niche that you can dominate, or how do you get enough irons in the fire to see something's going to pop for you. And the last thing I'll mention too is look at an exit or partial exit, or can you merge? And it's one of those things where, I bought two companies in the last 8 months. One was a dental staffing company, another was a nurse staffing company, and I had three other companies that I wanted to buy that the deals just didn't go through. More because those companies changed their mind. They ended up, some of them closed the doors. And so it's one of those things where you have to figure out if you want to be in the industry, if you want to be in this business. And I think this is applicable in any economic downturn within an industry. And you just got to figure out, it's like, okay, would I start this business again tomorrow? And if I would start it tomorrow, what would look differently, right? Or what would look different in that startup? So I think that's where we have to be thoughtful about this economic down period, and say, okay, how do we survive this cycle? And see, hopefully it is a cycle that it comes back to a normalization. Or if this is the new normal, how do you thrive in the new normal? Most of my companies, I have a US leader and then an offshore support person for every single division. And that's just the model that I've come to say, okay, let's still work towards our scale, but we've got to skinny down our back office costs to make sure that we can have an operating model that gets it done. So these are just a couple of things that I wanted to share with people in the industry, people that are running their own companies. I do fractional work. I help with consulting projects if there's a specific project that you want to do. So there's if you need help, there are resources out there. I put out a lot of free content. And I also, do intro calls with no cost, and then we see if there's a project there that I can truly help you with, or my team can help you with. Vanessa Pappas is one of the best operators in the industry right now. So if you needed help, she and I would love to assist. The industry is so big that even though I own my little small companies, it's a $30 billion industry. So so you could say we're competitors, but it's one of those things where I think there's under $1 billion. It's really, maybe not as competitive as everyone thinks. So, hey, happy to talk, happy to network, happy to connect. I hope that helps at least plant some seeds on how you can survive 2026 and hopefully get towards a Thrive plan in 2027. Thanks so much.